very delighted to be here to participate today in this Inter-Belief Dialogue in Contemporary Ireland seminar. First of all, congratulations to the organizers, the Anna Lynn Foundation, Chester Beatty Library, Dublin City Interfaith Forum, and of course Mary Immaculate College, and all other organizers and individuals that have contributed to this very significant seminar. I'm going to be talking about interfaith dialogue and focus on the Islamic perspective. In this day and age, we have so many misconceptions, misunderstandings, and prejudice. And interfaith dialogue gives us an opportunity to meet each other, interact with each other, and through interaction, understand each other. I'll give you here a story which happened with me. I was in one of the towns in Ireland. I was in the shop, in the shop, and suddenly this gentleman addressed me and he said, "Are you a Muslim?" And I wasn't wearing my uniform, my religious dress at all. And I replied to him, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Do you really hate me? Do you really want to kill me?" And I was, of course, shocked. And I said, "Well, why would you think that I hate you? Why would you think that I would want to kill you?" And he said, "The media. I've been listening to the news and hearing about Muslims, hearing about Islamic extremism, Muslim terrorists. And I feel, and this is the perception I have, that you all hate me and hate non-Muslims." And I had to assure him, of course, and I started this conversation with him. The conversation lasted for 20 minutes. And at the end, he was so happy. Not only did he take my details, contact details, he gave me a hug. He was so happy. And he said, "I'm so glad to now finally understand and know that I shouldn't be afraid of Muslims." Now this very real life experience tells us that there is this phobia, there is this fear, there is this prejudice, this perception that people have about Muslims, particularly in this day and age, because unfortunately, because of certain extremists claiming to act in the name of Islam, committing these atrocities in the name of Islam, and of course, the whole community gets the blame for it, while the majority of the Muslims absolutely condemn these attacks, these atrocities. But this particular fear, people genuinely have, and it's a reasonable fear, I believe. And we have to address the fear. And of course, this fear is not just limited to the Muslim community, but particularly in this day and age, it is very significantly huge, increased when we talk about the Muslim community. Now, how can we address that? We can address that by interacting with each other, interacting with those that are, for example, Muslims, interacting with people of other faith, other communities, other backgrounds, those whom we probably have heard about, have read about, but never have interacted. And I always say that before you confirm the perception, before you actually assume that someone, an individual or a community is like this or that, take your time and go and meet particular individuals from that community. And you will see most of the things, your notions, they will be shattered. Most of the assumptions that you have, they will be gone. Interfaith dialogue in this day and age is very significant, and interfaith dialogue is a two-way process. It involves balancing deep listening and open, honest sharing. And it also involves to take the risk to trust other people. Trust other people with your feelings and with your experience, which I've just done with you, one of my experiences. And interfaith dialogue also demands us to reach out and to be brave and to be courageous, to reach out with a clean intention, sincere intention to build bridges, intention to build, in fact, bridge communities and build peace. There is an old story, a very Irish story, I'm sure you're familiar with it, chancing the arm. the two Irish families that in 1492, the Butlers and the Fitzgeralds of Kildare, that had this dispute. And the Butlers took refuge in this castle, in this St. Patrick's Cathedral, and the Fitzgeralds followed them into the cathedral and asked them eventually to come out and to make peace. But they didn't come out. They had this history of dispute, a history of violence among the community, among these two big families. And what happened is that somebody said to the Fitzgeralds, well, you know, why don't you cut a hole in the door and stretch your arm through that door? Now, the Fitzgerald, he obviously understood that this is a big risk I'm taking. Because if I put my arm into this hole and the Butlers are there, they could do anything. Well, they can, of course, they can shake my hand, but they can also chop my hand. So they can do both things. But he made this brave step. He took this brave step that he did chance his arm. And eventually, there was reconciliation. Eventually, there is peace. And this is exactly, I think, what we need in this day and age. We need to be brave, and we need to chance our arm. And I, as an Islamic theologian, I have done that in the past few years. Particularly, I want to mention one story here. Last year, in Ramadan, I invited in the mosque Tommy Reichenthal, fantastic individual who we are very delighted to have here, and I'm very delighted to have here among the audience. Very good friend of mine, a Holocaust survivor. Look forward to listening today to you. And Tommy Reichenthal, it was his 80th birthday last year, and I organized in the mosque to celebrate his birthday in Ramadan, which was something unheard of. I knew the risk that I was taking. I was chancing my arm, not with you, Tommy, with my own community, with the Muslim community, because this was something that they had never actually practically seen. Even though we find such examples in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, which I'll discuss in a bit, but somehow these examples are somehow lost in tradition. And we don't see practical demonstration of these examples so much in the Muslim world because of many reasons. And one of the biggest reasons, I say, is ignorance of the true tradition of Islam. As Muslims, we are at the moment going through a phase that we often scholars refer to this as the time of Jahiliyyah again. This is the time of ignorance again. That despite that Islam had been there and had enlightened the Western societies and many civilizations, but at the moment the Muslim world needs enlightenment. And that enlightenment, we believe as Muslims, can only be given through its tradition, through its genuine deep research into its own history and tradition. So I invited Tommy to celebrate his 80th birthday, and he was very happy. He was delighted to be there. And one of the things that happened is people called me and said, Sheikh, you know, what are you doing? A Jewish Holocaust survivor and to speak in the mosque, to speak on the platform of the mosque, isn't that strange? And I told them that, you know, trust me. Trust me. And they for the moment, they were silent, but I said, make sure you do attend. And some of these people, they did attend. And one of these individuals was a Muslim representative of the Muslim faith in Belfast, a businessman who owns a couple of hotels in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And he represents the mosque in Belfast. He was there also. And it was this person, after listening to Tommy, after listening to my talk, and after having witnessed this beautiful interfaith event in the mosque, which we organized to celebrate the birthday of Tommy Reichenthal, it was him who said that until today, when I looked at the Jews, when I looked at the individuals, I didn't feel any compassion, any mercy for them. I always looked at them in a very wrong way. And it's only today, after listening to you, Tommy, in the mosque, about your experience, the experience that you had, the experience of suffering, that we all can relate to, that I now will never look the same way to Jewish people. I will always look at them as my fellow human beings and my brothers and sisters. It was this gentleman that first objected on this particular initiative, but it was him who actually then also we challenged his mind, and we were able to set that and change that mentality. But again, it has to be done, and courage and to be brave is something that is highly essential. One of the things that I mentioned in my talk there was a very important incident in the life of the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in his life also in fact interacted with other communities. And we find a very significant historical incident in his life, that there was a group of Christian delegation that consisting of 60 members, 45 theologians, scholars, and 15 other people. They were just their servants and their helpers. 45 theologians. They all came to Medina, to the city of Medina, to debate the Prophet Muhammad on theology, the doctrine of God, doctrine of Trinity, etc. The Prophet Muhammad, while they came for debate, he in fact invited them for a dialogue. He invited them for a dialogue, and he said that I have absolutely no problem with you coming to Medina, and we should sit down and discuss. And one of the problems was that where will these people sleep in Medina? There was no hotel. And the Christian community of Medina was very, very small, and they didn't have the means to provide accommodation for these very significant leaders of the Christian faith. And they asked the Prophet Muhammad, since he was the head of the state of Medina, where do we stay? And he said, well, because you are all representatives of the Christian faith, you're all leaders in your own capacity, we will provide you with the most holiest place that we have, and that is the mosque itself. So he opened the doors of the mosque to invite the Christians to come in the mosque. And another question was raised by them, that where do we pray when we have to pray? And he said that you may pray in the mosque according to your own tradition. They stayed for a few nights in the mosque, and they prayed in the mosque according to their own tradition. And amazingly, they were so overwhelmed and impressed by the Prophet Muhammad's interaction, that they asked him that, Muhammad, is this how your followers will treat all of us Christians? And he said, yes, they will. And they said, well, how can you guarantee that? And the Prophet Muhammad then wrote a covenant. A covenant was written by the Prophet Muhammad that was signed by him, that guaranteed religious freedom and guaranteed various other rights to the Christian community first and foremost. That as Muslims, anyone until the Day of Judgment who is a Muslim, he must abide by this covenant. And that is to respect the Christians, to respect the leaders, not to demolish churches, even during the time of warfare, and to have utmost respect for them. If anyone is married with a Christian lady, he is obliged to bring his wife to the church if she wants to go to the church. And later on, scholars have actually, the Hanafi school of thought, particularly the Hanafi Islamic jurisprudence school, has particularly said that the Hanafi scholars say that this particular covenant is not limited to the Christians. In fact, it is general for all people of all the faiths. The Quran lays down the foundation of interfaith dialogue first and foremost. It says in a chapter that is entitled the chapter on the non-believers, it says that lakum dinukum waliyadin, you keep your faith, we keep our faith. That's the first point, that we acknowledge and accept your identity, your religious tradition or non-religious tradition. We accept your faith. And you have to also understand we have our own. So this acceptance, not tolerance. Tolerance is different. Tolerance is if someone is not persecuted, that is tolerance. No, acceptance is that you actually accept and respect and honor the other tradition and the faith and the background. And that is what Quran says. And also the Prophet Muhammad, a verse was revealed to him which particularly says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٌ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. O people of the book, let us come together on that what we have in common, on that what is common among our communities. the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad left an important principle, that Muslims must treat people, all people, well. And one of the missions of the Prophet Muhammad was not to convert people to Islam. His mission, as he was once asked, what is your mission? He said, Inni bu'ithu li'utammima makarim al-akhlaq. I have only been sent to perfect good characteristics. I've only been sent to show people good moral behavior. One of his very beautiful sayings of the Prophet Muhammad is, and I think this could be the foundation of interfaith dialogue from a Muslim perspective, that al-mu'minu man amanahu an-nasu ala anfusihim wa amwalihim, that a believer, a Muslim, is a one whom people trust in regards to their lives, in regards to their wealth. So if any person cannot be trusted by others because he may infringe their human basic rights, according to the Prophet Muhammad, that person cannot be called a believer. And in another narration he said that al-muslimu man salima an-nasa min lisanihi wa yadihi. A Muslim is a one who is a source of peace from his hands and tongue, who is a source of peace for other people. Not just Muslims, for other people, other human beings. So in light of these traditions and these narrations of the Prophet Muhammad, we can from an Islamic perspective at least, lay down the foundations of interfaith dialogue. And lastly, because we are talking about interfaith dialogue in schools, one of my views I'd like to share here. As a Muslim theologian, I have not sent my children to the Muslim national school. My own children, that Ahmad is 8, my son, and my daughter, she is 7, Fatima, they don't go to the Muslim national school. I sent them to the community national school, School Gronia in Dublin 15. And the reason why I have done so is very significant. Because I believe that ultimately in this society, in a plural society like Ireland, we are going to have to interact with each other anyway. We are going to have to live with each other anyway. So what is the point to send them to a Muslim national school where they only will interact from a young age with only Muslim children and not interact with children of other backgrounds? They will not develop understanding. They will not develop acceptance, develop respect and tolerance. And I think a young age, that is when it should start. It's the most crucial age. It should always start from a young age. You can only start integration from that age. So I didn't send them there. I sent them to the community national school. And I have heard of some of the experiences in schools where they, for example, take children away from the class to teach them about other faiths. For example, Muslim children are taken out of the class and they are taught about their own religion by an individual. I personally am against that. I believe all children should be in the same class and should be taught about all traditions, whether religion or whether it is something to do with no religion. There are schools where they have LGBT weeks. As a Muslim theologian, I do not condemn that. In fact, I am in favor of that. Because I believe the aim, even though I am a religious person, but I believe the aim of such LGBT weeks is to promote respect, tolerance, acceptance in the children. Similarly, we should have Muslim weeks. We should have Christian weeks. We should have Jewish weeks in the schools. So children from a young age, and atheist weeks. So children from a young age will understand, develop understanding, respect, tolerance, and acceptance of others. Not only that they will understand, and religious teachings they can get from their home anyway. I give my children, and they go to a Sunday school, to the mosque also. So I think these were some of the points that I wanted to discuss. This is a time for dialogue. This is the very crucial time. And if we don't start dialogue and understanding of each other, the world can never be a better place. Thank you very much for listening.